So Dr. Uday Devgan needs no introduction. He is an award-winning, internationally recognized cataract, lens, and LASIK eye surgeon. He is also known as the doctor's doctor. He obtained his medical degree with highest distinction, that's summa cum laude, from the University of Southern California School of Medicine. Then he completed his training at the UCLA Jules Steen Eye Institute. He's currently the chief of ophthalmology at UCLA and Medical Center. He runs also a private ophthalmic practice called the Devgan Eye Surgery. He is also an active ophthalmic columnist, writer, and contributor. He has been on the editorial board member for 8 major ophthalmic publications, international lectures in 40 plus countries with live surgery done in multiple countries. And all national and international students who are either aspiring ophthalmologists, currently in residency, or are in fellowship have gained a lot of insight by his very famous Cataract Coach website as well as YouTube channel. Those wonderfully explained videos give a lot of motivation and teaching to all of us. We are honored to have the doctor's doctor, Dr. Uday Devgan, as the keynote speaker for our first web series on phacoemulsification. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Rohan. Truly a pleasure. Happy to be here. I think what Dr. Mehta said was very appropriate. He said, a generation ago, we had to search around for VHS videotapes of surgery. It was so hard to learn. Now on your mobile phone, you can watch any video in high definition. If tomorrow you have a posterior polar cataract, you can look on your phone, watch videos in 5 minutes, understand the concepts, and help your patient even better. It's an amazing time to be an ophthalmologist. And I want you guys to also be proud. The NRIs who live here in the US, we are making you proud. The first generation Americans, we are working really hard and taking over.
That we are proud of you. That is a fact of life. You know, people like you have put this country way far ahead. No question. We are absolutely proud of you.
So let's get into it. Let's watch some videos. Let's do some good discussions. Let's have some fun.
So we'll have the first video then. Mr. Navneet, if you can play the video for sir. Video number 1.
And remember, to all the audience, you can also stream these videos anytime you want on cataractcoach.com. Everything's there. And of course, it's free. While he's getting that ready, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have with the new generation is, and one of the best bits of advice I can give you is the mistake that I made. When I was finishing my residency training, pause the video just for a second. When I finished my training, one of the dumbest things I said was I said, I can't wait till I'm in practice. It'll be so much easier than residency. And as you, of course, now you know, residency is not that difficult. It just seems like it is at the time. And your practice in the future will be even harder. So like these guys will teach you, enjoy your residency and maximize your learning. You're gonna look back on it as one of the best times of your life.
So I'll play the video now.
Yes.
CataractCoach.com, secrets and subtleties, perfecting your cataract surgery technique. The secrets to avoid corneal edema after cataract surgery. Well, step 1 is you want a wave of good viscoelastic. Not the stringy stuff, not spaghetti. You want a wave. Watch carefully. You want to use a good high-quality dispersive viscoelastic, and that wave is going to coat the corneal endothelium. If it comes out like spaghetti string, it's not going to coat. That's very important. Now, step 2, you got to make a great incision. It allows for appropriate placement of the instruments. It'll seal well at the end. This is going to help avoid corneal edema. Here I'm doing a single plane incision, and you want to have it very repeatable, very clean architecture, very well sealing. So these are 2 things right off the bat that are important. But wait, there's more. Now we want to have the surgery itself be relatively quick. Now the goal is not speed, the goal is efficiency. No wasted movements, no wasted steps. And to achieve this, you want to cut out all the extra parts of the surgery that don't benefit the patient. If you can make a beautiful capsular rectus like this with just the forceps, Stop using acetylene. You don't need acetylene to do cataract surgery. That's just an additional step. All these additional steps together prolong the case and you get more inflammation. Now, number 3, what should we do? Put more viscoelastic to protect the corneal endothelium after you complete hydrodissection. So we're going to add more protective dispersive OVD right there in the center prior to putting the phacoprobe in the eye. Because the hydrodissection causes you to lose viscoelastic. You may not realize it, but it's true. Now we're going to go inside the eye, chop the nucleus, and we're going to break it up. And here's where it's important to use a very efficient way of nucleofractus. So minimize phaco energy, use phaco chop, stay in the capsular bag, employ phaco power modulations, and easy on the foot pedal. The less ultrasonic energy delivered in the eye, the better it is for the patient. So use a pulse mode, use a variable duty cycle, and be judicious on your delivery of phaco energy. Now, it's not just the ultrasonic energy that causes corneal edema, it's also the amount of fluid you run through the eye. So you want to minimize that amount of fluid as well. So keep your settings appropriate. Don't waste time in the eye. Remember, what's the volume of the anterior chamber? 1/4 of a cc. If you add an empty capsular bag and posterior chamber, maybe another 1/4 of a cc. That's a 1/2 cc. If you're going through more than one bottle of balanced salt solution, well, one bottle is probably 500 cc's. And think about that. 500 cc's means you're turning over this 1/2 cc anterior segment 1,000 times. So an established and experienced surgeon should be able to do a cataract surgery with very little fluid. 100 cc's or less of fluid is very common in the hands of an experienced surgeon. And the less fluid you put through the eye, the better. The less ultrasonic energy put inside the eye, the better. If you are going to deliver this energy in the eye, again, stay away from the corneal endothelium. Operate at the iris plane or even deeper in the eye in the capsular bag. But avoid operating near the corneal endothelium. So here we're filling up our capsular bag. You see our capsular rexus there. We're going to load up our lens and deliver the lens. And so this case so far has had a very minimal amount of trauma. You can see the eye looks great. You also notice that we're very careful in pivoting in the incisions. If you distort your incisions and you see wrinkles in your cornea as you're operating, well, you're going to see those same wrinkles the next day on the first post-op visit, and they're going to persist. So to avoid those, you got to pivot in the incisions. Now, our next important point is removing all the viscoelastic from the eye, including from behind the IOL. If you leave viscoelastic in the eye, it can cause blockage of the trabecular meshwork and a very high spike in the intraocular pressure. And if the eye pressure goes very high, 40, 50, 60 cc's, 60 millimeters of mercury or more, this patient's going to have a painful eye and a lot of corneal edema just from that increased intraocular pressure. So make sure you get all the viscoelastic out of the eye from behind the IOL as well as the angle of the eye. And we've showed you videos in the past about the angle sweep method. Look it up on cataractcoach.com if you're unfamiliar. The angle sweep is a way of making sure there's no retained viscoelastic in the angle of the eye, which is the most common place. That's very important. And then finally, our last important point is use only mild hydration to seal the incision. If you have a good incision with proper architecture, it should seal with just a little bit of hydration. Look how I do the roof of the incision back and forth, just a little bit. I do not advocate these huge white spots against the lateral walls of the incision. Those induce a lot of temporary astigmatism and should be avoided. These are the subtleties that you may be missing And that's the difference between good and great. Watch carefully. Now, the first thing is excellent draping and keeping the eye in primary. Eyelashes are out of the way, the lid margin is fully sequestered, the eye is well centered in our field, iris parallel to the floor. Second, the position and direction of the paracentesis to make sure that it's radial, barely nicking the limbal vessels 2 clock guards away from where we make the main incision. Use the full CC of the anesthetic for consistency. So put what you want in the eye and put the rest on the cornea. You always use 1 CC that way. Complete anterior chamber fill, good IOP with the OVD. So get a good fill. There's that wave coming across and achieve that excellent IOP, physiologic. Incision architecture. This time, I'm going to end up shifting it to avoid the conjunctiva. Watch carefully. Starting the incision there, it hits the conj a little bit, so I'll shift to the left and continue the incision because I don't want chemosis. Now measure and plan out that 5 millimeter capsular exercise using these forceps. That part you know. Chop it in the safe position to put the capsule back. When that last fragment comes out, look how the chopper is protecting the posterior capsule. That's an important maneuver. We can push the cataract piece in front of the tip, but still we have the soft, rounded back end of the chopper towards the posterior capsule to avoid touching the capsule. Next, deliver the IOL with the eye in primary. Get the injector tip in, start to deliver, and now make sure the eye stays back in primary. Deliver the lens, and that's a beautiful outcome. Now rotate the lens to facilitate removal of viscoelastic. I think you should go behind the IOL to remove viscoelastic. So if we rotate the lens about 90 degrees away from the incision, now we're able to keep the haptic-optic junction away and facilitate that. Make sure you remove all viscoelastic from behind the IOL optic. That's important because if it's a toric lens or a multifocal lens with diffractive rings, you need to have it centered up. And these lenses tend to be slightly tacky and will adhere to the posterior capsule and stay in place as long as there's no OVD. Use the vacuum on the IA probe to get all the OVD out of the angle for 360 degrees. So move that probe around the eye and really vacuum out the viscoelastic from the angle. You don't want to leave any behind. Hydrate the mid-stroma of the incision very gently, right there in the mid-stroma. Not these 2 white spots on the side that some people do. Center the IOL, and now sweep the angle, injecting BSS to make sure there's no trapped viscoelastic or even trapped nuclear fragments. It's an important step that's often overlooked. Inflate to the ideal IOP and hydrate the paracentesis, and also we'll inject some moxifloxacin. This is an intracameral antibiotic, and that's going to help us prevent endophthalmitis. So there we go, a little antibiotic as well. Finally, tetracaine sponge prior to performing the LRI, just to make sure the eye is nicely anesthetized. Use the fixation ring to guide the LRI creation. That's way it's a beautiful arc exactly where you want it. And finally, check that the incisions are sealed and dry. That looks great. So these are many of the subtleties that are often overlooked. Thanks for your time, and please check out Cataract Coach, where you can download and watch all these videos.
All righty.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, Dr. Uday. It was indeed a pleasure learning live from you. I would like to ask the panelists, Dr. Rohit Om Prakash and Dr. Lubna, to share their opinion.
I think it was a perfect surgery, if you ask me, because, you know, one thing which I have learned over the years, respect tissues and tissues will respect you. I don't know whether everybody noted, you know, you just see the size of the pupil when he started the surgery. It was the same at the end of the surgery. This means he did not traumatize even iris one bit. So he was looking after the cornea. He was looking after the iris, not touching it. So these are the points, you know, which one should feel, because I personally feel that if at the start of the surgery, the size of the pupil is X, at the end of the surgery, without even using an intracameral, dilator, the size of the pupil should practically be the same. So this is, you know, you could see how he was respecting tissues. And this is the thing which I feel that all youngsters should imbibe. because if you respect tissues, tissues will really respect you. And a few points, if I'm permitted to, how I do things slightly differently. I'm a bit more careful about the side port incision. So I calibrate my side port incision because I feel at that point, that is the site, I call it the stepson, because we are not bothered about that at times. So if we do not allow inappropriate efflux of the fluid from the side port incision, that will further add to the stability of the anterior chamber. That point, I feel, if we can, which has become a regular thing in our practice, that we calibrate the side port incision. And another point which I feel at times which we can also do is that when we feel that the nuclear pieces are slightly on the harder side, and when they are bouncing towards the corneal endothelium, you can put your chopper in between the phaco tip and the corneal endothelium in a horizontal way so that it shields the corneal endothelium for that matter. So these are a few things which I have been doing in my practice. But for all the youngsters, I would say that when you watched Uday's surgery, it was perfect 10 on 10.
Thank you, Rohit. Very important pearls there. Remember, cataract surgery takes a few years to learn, but a lifetime to master.
One more point to share that I would like to mention is 70% of your job is done if you have a good rhexis. You know how quietly, coolly he made a wonderful rhexis. The problem starts when you have a very small rhexis or when you run away on the side. He made a wonderful rhexis and he protected his endothelium with minimum fluidics. So the wound construction, the endothelial way he protected the endothelium for the cornea to be good, and minimum movement in that central few millimeters he moved. He never moved to the side. And the most important was his aspiration port. It was silicon tip. Most people are still not. Am I right, Uday? That was, so you don't traumatize. Right. That's something which we don't have very common in this country. So something very important. It is so friendly to the posterior capsule, to the iris. It's very, very friendly. It doesn't traumatize them like a steel cannula. So you can't tear a posterior capsule even if you jump on the posterior capsule with your silicon tip. Am I right? That's something very important take-home message that you give.
For sure. And then for the young people, all your professors here in this conference will tell you, cataract surgery is built everything on the previous step. A bad incision leads to chamber instability. Now you have a bad rhexis. Now you have that all goes downhill. That's why it's such a tough surgery.
Yes, Dr. Lubna, your opinion? Can we have your opinion, please?
Thank you. Devgan sir, it was a pleasure to watch you as always. I'm a big fan of cataractcoach.com as well.
Thank you.
My suggestions are that when I'm doing phaco instruction, one of the things which you already highlighted is making incisions well is very, very important right at the onset, because it saves you. It comes as a saving grace even if you've had a capsular rent. If you have a nice taut incision, it helps you at least. It eliminates the need for a suture at the end. One more thing which we can do to protect our incisions is to make sure that the instruments that you're using, especially your side port blades or your keratome, are sharp. Many a times, even if you're using a fresh one, right in the box itself, maybe the tip is just slightly bent, and the amateur surgeon is so much in a hurry to get in and just start with the phaco surgery that the attention doesn't go there. So attention should go to the sharpness of the blades as well. Second thing which I heard you say that you insist on phaco in the bag, but I have seen amateur surgeons be very scared about going a little posterior because of the fear of having a posterior capsular rent. So just to put them at ease, I tell them, make sure you don't move above the pupillary plane. So as long as you're below the pupillary plane, even if you don't go too much behind because of fear, we can understand you're all amateurs, you don't want complications, but that is a good thumb rule to follow. And again, like you said, the phaco time or the use of phaco power should be at the minimal. I totally second that. At the same time, what I tell them, is that you keep your phaco probe more towards the center, towards the end, so that not only do you have lesser complications, but you end up using lesser power towards the pupillary margin, and that also prevents the pupil from coming down. So these are my observations, but it's a fantastic video, and I am a big fan.
Thank you, Dr. Lubna. I'll have to come do it. I want to do a mini SICS fellowship with you.
Always.
I'm not that good at SICS.
Sure, sir, sure.
Those were some wonderful pearls given by the Phaco masters. Over to Pooja.
Sir, can we play the video 3 now?
Sure, let's do it. This is a very important video for the young people. If you're in your training, if you're 35 or younger, this is what you need to learn. This is going to change your entire career.
CataractCoach.com. Which career path will you choose? You want to be an expert surgeon or a competent surgeon? I first learned about this from my friend Professor Milton Yogi from Sao Paulo, Brazil. So we're going to play a routine case here in the background, but we're really focusing on this graph in the bottom right corner. So which career path do you choose? We have 3 lines there. The blue is the dropout line, the red is the competent surgeon, and then the green there is the expert surgeon. Well, there's a big difference. You see, the dropout surgeon, just within a couple of years, hits that frustration barrier in trying to learn surgery. The surgical skill is not easy to develop, and this doctor just quits, drops out, switches to a different specialty, goes into business, doesn't practice medicine, something different. But let's say you get past the frustration barrier. You've got 2 choices here. You've got the competent surgeon who is okay, and this is a surgeon who, whatever was learned in residency, will continue to do for the rest of the career. And this is a stagnant option because the skills don't really advance, new techniques aren't learned, new skills are not developed. And there's a surgeon who, yes, technically is competent, that's a good enough surgeon, but that surgeon's stuck in that zone of mediocrity. And then finally, you've got the expert surgeon who continues to learn, advances techniques, learns about new technology, and continues to get something from every single surgery. And every year, even 10, 20, or more years after training, continues to learn more and more. So if you look now, that surgeon has passed what's called the passion barrier. So gone past just being a competent surgeon, but having a passion for his or her craft, wanting to learn more, wanting to be better, give better options for the patient, takes pride in his or her work, and wants to truly give the highest possible level of surgical care to his or her patients. So well past the zone of mediocrity. Now, if you look at the top here, we see the different zones of time, 5 year, 10 year, 15 years, and beyond. The first 5 years, the blue block there that's what you're learning during your residency training, and you learn a lot. But even your first 5 years in practice, that orange zone, you'll learn even more. And then after 10 years of ophthalmology, you'll really start enjoying the tough cases. You'll look for the challenging ones. You'll ask your colleagues who aren't as driven to please send over the difficult cases. And it'll be a source of pride for you. And you'll learn so much more, even though your training was 10 years ago. And then finally, the green zone there, you'll be in the master of surgery. This is where you're truly an expert. You still continue to learn. You still advance your techniques. You still move on to learn new technologies that come down the road. And you really aim to make every single case as perfect as possible. You take pride in your work. And this is the best phase because you truly enjoy your craft. There's no fear there. There's no worries about complications because whatever happens, you know you're going to handle it You'll always give the patient your best. You'll do what's best for the patient, and the patient will have a fantastic outcome. So now in the background, as you watch me do this routine cataract case, which went very quickly and very beautifully, but most importantly, very exactingly. That's the exact rhexis that I want. That's the exact incision that I want. The lens centration is perfect. We'll put a little bit of medicine in the eye, a little triamcinolone, seal up the incisions, call this a day. This patient had a beautiful outcome, and more importantly, I loved doing it. Thank you for watching.
That was a wonderful video by Dr. Uday again. So I would like to ask Dr. Gaurav for his comments on it.
Yeah, I think some very amazing, messaging there, because, it's when you start operating, and that's what I also probably emphasize in all my sessions, that, you never stop learning. What Uday said, that, you so keep improving upon yourself, keep improvising, keep raising the standards. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat, Dr. Gaurav?
Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to say that, this is such an important message. And in fact, I was just talking to somebody the other day. I started recording my surgery from the day I started my practice. The day I could afford to, I bought my microscope. I also bought a, camera to go with it, even though it was the cheapest and it would probably not help me, present anywhere. But I was recording every surgery I did. And from day one, like 22 years back, I have every surgery on VHS and on CDs and then DVDs and now on hard drive. Archived each one of them, go back and look at them, see how you can improve upon yourself. So I think amazing message, Uday, and I think you're spot on.
And even professional athletes always they study the game day footage. I've done cataracts for, 20,000 more cataracts. I still record every case, and I want to learn from every case. And there are things you have to be able to teach yourself in the future. I have done about a dozen DMEC. I am no expert, but I'm passionate about learning and getting better at it. A year from now, I'll be much better at DMEC.
Anybody, any more comments? Or we'll move on to the next video.
I think Dr. Aarti has something to say.
First of all, Dr. Uday sir, I'm a big and huge fan of yours. I do frequently go back to the website and watch and try to learn, a new step every week. I would just like to mention to all the young ophthalmologists, one thing which I observed while watching both your videos is that, you're so grounded and so humble that even being such an eminent and such a big phaco surgeon, one thing you did not forget to mention was to drape the eye perfectly. That is something which, like Dr. Lubna said, that, young doctors, they are so enthusiastic to start the surgery that, these minor points could be missed. And we all know that how important it is to keep the eyelashes and, the area clean and neat. So that is one thing which I really enjoyed watching. And of course, seeing your surgery is a treat to the eye. And Dr. Gaurav, I would just like to mention, like you said, that yes, recording each and every case and, going back to the video and learning itself teaches a lot. I'm from, I did my fellowship from Narayan Netralaya, and even before I joined my fellowship back during my PG days, that is one thing which my teachers used to tell me: record each case and try to get it into 30 seconds or maybe 1 minute. And that is something which helped me get my skills faster and faster, because as I used to edit, I knew, the fraction of second I'm wasting in each step. So, that helped me fine tune my surgery. And I feel that young ophthalmologists should really, really take that, start editing your video, and trust me, you will laugh and you'll enjoy the process, and each and every cataract surgery will be more exciting for you. Thank you so much.
And you can get a very cheap adapter. You can have an adapter with your mobile phone, these 3D printed ones, and attach your phone to the ocular.
Absolutely.
And then for the draping, I agree with you. I only have one golden rule of surgery. My golden rule of surgery is I want to give the same treatment that I'd want to receive from my own eye. And when you're doing my phaco, you better drape it beautifully.
No, what he said makes so much sense that Right from draping, smallest thing gives you the confidence. The moment you don't see eyelashes, you don't get irritated, you see there's no fluid, every small part. So by the time you're at the main stage of phacoing, your confidence level would have changed. And repeating, re-repeating everything that he's doing, he's put it at the spinal level with a great spirit to keep learning at any phase. You see the green line which he showed even after 20 years. The successful people have been who kept learning, who kept changing with, evolved with time. And that is the most important message for all of us.
I think one more point I would like to add.
Sorry.
Yeah, I fully echo with Dr. Gaurav, because recording every case is the most important thing. No doubt you have to, we as young surgeons, I'm talking of 30 years back, we always wanted to do as many cases as we wanted to. But I personally believe that one case you do, you should critically evaluate that case. And that should be the learning point, because it is not the quality, it is not the quantity which matters. It is the quality also which is going to make you go ahead. It should not be in how much time you have finished the case. The idea should be how good you have done it. And if you move with that concept of doing it with the nicety as much as you can, what should I say, shortening of the time will gradually come as and how you grow. So in the initial stages, the youth want to do it fast. Don't do it fast, do it in a quality, nice way. That should be the basic concept. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add to that. What you guys have mentioned is absolutely spot on. But just to make it a little more exciting for the trainees, what I did with the help of my associates is, a few years ago, we introduced the IC Oscar scoring system at our place. And what we used to do is, we used to preoperatively assess the severity of the case before giving it to the trainee using the Najar Awad score, and then accordingly allot the case to the trainee, and then assess each and every step from a scale of 2 to 5 using the ICO Oscar system. And then it not only helped us to work well on that particular step which the surgeon or the trainee is continuously flowing, but it also made them work more diligently and more focused way, so that they can work exactly at the weak point. And I have seen that even the learning curve has become steeper with that. So once you can measure something, it really puts you on that spot, that today I have done a 100-meter sprint in so many seconds, and tomorrow I want to do it faster. So I feel if we introduce these scoring systems even to our own surgeries, I think we all tend to get that drive to get it better. So I think what we can measure, we can always improve. So I'm a firm believer in that.
I would, hello sir. I've been a huge admirer of Dr. Devgan sir, and I think we are the lucky ones who are in a generation where we started by watching sir's video. And I think the first video that I saw was in cataractcoach.com, and it was advised by my friend. And it really helps to watch as many videos as you can. And we started learning from SICS, and usually in government colleges here, we start from SICS only. And during our post-graduation, we only do SICS. So it is a little difficult to convert to phacoemulsification all of a sudden. But I think the good thing about our training was that we were always advised to do a capsulorhexis, even when we were doing a small incision cataract surgery. Usually in many colleges, we do a capsulotomy when we start. But in our colleges, this was like the good thing, that we were well trained with capsulorhexis. So when we started doing phacoemulsification, it was much easier. And I think that should be advised, not to do capsulotomy and prefer capsulorhexis even in SICS.
Good points.
Thank you, sir.
Great. So we move on to the last video by Dr. Uday.
Yes.
Let's do it. This one you'll love.
Yeah.
This next video is really going to change the way you think of lens calculations. It's only 5 minutes, but it's totally revolutionary. And it's going to be a little fast, so pay close attention. But I think you'll really appreciate this. This is what the future is going to be. This really is the future of lens calcs. Go ahead, play.
The future of IOL calculations. It's artificial intelligence. The challenge is that refractive cataract surgery requires refractive accuracy. And current formulas just aren't there. They're only 70 to 80% accurate. That means at least 1 out of 5 patients fail to hit the target. And they're paying out of pocket, so accuracy is paramount. The problem is that there are 20 different lens calc formulas and none are sufficiently accurate. We see this every day in the clinic. The printout says 18 or 18.5 or 19. Well, which is correct? How do I choose? There are static formulas like Barrett or Holiday that are good, but you need something that's going to evolve with time. Look how crazy this is. All these different formulas give a different answer for the same eye. We do something different. We constantly evolve and improve accuracy. We crowdsource hundreds of thousands of eyes, big data, more than 3,000 users and contributors, and we're growing. We can optimize for 10 ranges of axial length or keratometry or AC depth. That alone's 1,000 points. We can optimize for 1 surgeon, multiple surgeons in a group, or all surgeons in the entire US or the world. The solution, of course, is artificial intelligence, which has evolved a lot. Who's the best chess grandmaster of all time? Well, 23 years ago, it was IBM's Deep Blue that beat Kasparov. But now Google AI beats any human 100% of the time. And it was just given the rules of chess and played itself for 4 hours. So AI works well for lens calcs and all surgeons. Low volume surgeons actually benefit the most, the largest jump in accuracy. Medium volume surgeons, high volume surgeons do great as well. And this is automated with no surgeon input needed. Here's a great example of a surgeon who was 82% accurate with Barrett, but with our AI approach, 94% accurate. And we can apply this to any surgeon. So we have AI lens calcs with Plus, the precision lattice universal super algorithm, multiple patents in process, and very strong intellectual property. We evolve these lens calcs with our AI, and our methodologies have been proven superior, independently analyzed by multiple ophthalmic companies who concluded that it was the best and most accurate of any method. We use AI to give the best IOL power, but also the best astigmatic treatment. We even apply it to LASIK nomograms. The market in the US is 4 million cataracts a year. Outside the US, even more. There's a LASIK market too. We have a very strong adoption and uptake by our MDs. 3,000 active users worldwide, performing thousands of lens calcs per day. Rapid adoption and uptake as users become locked into our platform, and this works with all IOLs. It also works great with current technologies. With femtosecond laser, we can use more biometric data to give even better accuracy. Intraop aberrometers can be increased in their accuracy. Adjustable IOLs can be reserved for truly unusual eyes because 95% of eyes aren't going to need it. The value, it's available to license to multiple ophthalmic companies or to partner exclusively with one company. Current USA licensing payments for these types of calculations in ophthalmology are 10 to 15 million per year. We can take it all. We also have a bonus intellectual property, a self-calibrating, evolving ocular biometer. Imagine this, the biometer measures the eye, we do your deep learning lens calculations with AI through the cloud, you do the surgery, you put the patient back on the same machine with your technician. It automatically records the post-op outcome, sends the data back, optimizes the algorithm, and gets better and better. It's self-calibrating, automated objective data, millions of eyes, and it evolves in perpetuity. So the future of lens calcs is Plus, a novel methodology to refine the lens calculations, astigmatism calculations, LASIK, SMILE, any IOL calculations. Can be used with any formula or approach. You can evolve this and improve it forever. So our take-home message is, for lens calcs, you can be static at 70 or 80% accuracy, or you can evolve with AI and push to 95% or more using Lattice AI Plus calculations. And don't forget, we apply to astigmatism and LASIK nomograms too.
We're going to replace every existing formula, every existing methodology with just this AI. And the same way that you'll never beat the Google computer at chess, you'll never beat our lens calcs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Uday. Those were
If
some really
more of
nice
us come,
pearls. Those were some really nice pearls by you. And you were saying something, sorry.
I said it's going to be a different world coming up with these lens calculations. It's going to really change things. We're already seeing it now. I'm so confident in the lens calculations we do that for a cataract patient, if you don't hit that target of plane or whatever I promised you, I do a free LASIK or PRK. I eat the cost. That's how confident I am.
So what's your take on toric lenses?
Say it again?
What's your take on the toric lenses? Like for youngsters, when is the time that we can take the step forward to toric lenses? As in like...
If you're a refractive cataract surgeon, for sure you need to be able to use toric lenses. Very important. For a diopter or more of corneal astigmatism, a toric lens is typically the best. Incisional approaches are not good for more than a diopter. You start doing toric lenses after you have already made the ability to have a good predictable incision, and you have to have a good capsulorhexis. And the last thing is you have to be able to go behind the IOL to remove the viscoelastic. So the IOL sticks to the capsular bag and stays in its correct meridian or orientation. So if you can do all these things, great. But if you make a bad incision and the incision causes a diopter of astigmatism, well, all your calculations are out the window. So you need to be able to be consistent with the incision, the rhexis to overlap the optic, and removing the viscoelastic from behind the IOL. If you can do that for 20 monofocal non-toric cases, then we can graduate you to toric.
Right. What's your take on hydroimplantation of lenses, especially during toric, and not using a viscoelastic?
Even better. So hydroimplantation, right, is using the infusion to keep the eye inflated through the paracentesis and implanting the lens without putting in an extra viscoelastic in the eye. Works great, but it's a more advanced technique, not for the younger surgeon. In my surgeries, you see, I use two viscoelastics. At the beginning of the case, I use dispersive to coat the endothelium. And then at the end of the case, to fill the bag, I use a cohesive, which easily washes out. And so if you want to do hydroimplantation, even better, but that's a little more advanced technique, not for the beginner.
I know that Dr. Mehta sir and Dr. Gaurav sir have worked with Mr. Warren Hill, Dr. Warren Hill. So I would like to bring them in with their experiences for the AI-based formulas.
Yes, in fact, Uday, I was keen to ask you how the LADAs. I don't have experience with the LADAs formula. How is it different from the Hill RBF, and like where do they differ really?
Great question. So Warren's a great guy. The Hill RBF's a good form. You should definitely look into it as well. The Hill RBF, the radial basis function, he's basically starting without a backbone, meaning the AI will predict a number for him. But what we do is we tether that to a baseline calculation. So let's say for ours, you can start with a Holiday or start with the Barrett calculation or whatever calculation you want. And then the AI is only allowed to change the IOL power within a certain confine. So you can say you can allow the AI to change it up to 1 diopter in either direction or half diopter. So the chance of getting a crazy out of bounds value has been eliminated. And so the difference is it's AI, we do AI with a backbone. So you can't, the AI cannot vary it a tremendous amount. Whereas you'll see on Hill RBF, there are times where you have out of bounds calculations, or the machine can predict a number that isn't tied down to an existing method. So where plus comes in with Lattice Plus is you can start with any formula you want, like Holiday or Barrett, and then the AI can adjust it within your desired parameters.
I got that. So I just wanted to know that how many, Hill RBF is growing from the 1 to the 2 to the 3. They've been increasing their numbers. So is the LADAs constantly increasing? Like, is it happening in real time? Like when you're using it on the cloud and, more and more people are using it, and how are you getting the feedback from surgeons about what their outcomes were and how many surgeons are involved, like how many testing sites are there?
If you go to iolcalc.com and you register and you get an account, you can do freelance calculations on our site. There's in one of the tabs, you can then go back and put your post-op data.
Okay.
You put the IOL you used and what was the refractive outcome. then the AI will hone your specific library. Like I've got thousands of eyes in my own personal library. And the only time that the AI doesn't use my library is if I have a very unusual eye, a 19 millimeter axial length or a 34 millimeter axial length. I may not have a tremendous number of patients in that one zone. So then it can use the full library of all surgeons. But if you submit your own data, like the example I gave was a surgeon in Florida here in the US, he is 94+% accurate now, which is much better than he achieved before. And it's based on his own actual data.
Wonderful. So you have your own A constant kind of thing developing on the side. And then, of course, if you need to fall back on other.
No. An A constant is a fool's game. Because the
So
problem with
I understood. It's like your personalized AI, right? It's your
Yeah, yeah.
personalized AI, but then you can also take the help of a lot of other people who have put in all their data and, so that can help you tweak it even further. I got it. Yeah.
Just
Sounds
so
good.
the audience understands, the young residents have to understand, an A constant changes all eyes up or down. But you can't treat a myopic -10 eye the same way as a hyperopic +5 eye. But yet, if you change the A constant, it just raises all of them or lowers all of them. And that doesn't make sense. We instead evolve the curve. And instead of just optimizing one A constant, again, we optimize 1,000 points. 10 ranges of K, 10 ranges of AC depth, 10 ranges of axial length. 10 by 10 by 10 is 1,000.
How long is the data? Because Uday, everything about AI ML is about data. The number of cases, the more the number of cases, the better the data, the output that you can get. So has this been a long period, 5 years kind of study that you've had?
IOLcalc.com. I registered that name. You can look this up. July of 2000, 20 years ago.
Okay. So you have a huge database which you're
And
working.
the AI has constantly evolved. And then now we first published for the world 5 years ago in 2015, the basics of this. And we've kept evolving it. We're playing our cards a little close to our chest and not revealing all our secrets right now because we're actually in serious discussions with a couple of big companies to have this automatically in your biometers.
Dr.
Next
Gaurav,
question
I would like to Dr. Gaurav, I would like to ask you, since you have been on to Hill RBF formula, how do you compare the results with Barrett's Universal 2? And where do you go in for Hills and where do you go in for Barrett's? And when there's a difference, what do you do in the two populations? So there are three.
Nice question, Dr. Rohit. In fact, we were with the Hill RBF, we were one of the beta testing sites for, the initial data that was used. And then, of course, now it's grown beyond it. So in India, we were doing that for Dr. Warren Hill. So today it's evolved so much beyond what we started with. We were doing it on the Excel sheets to begin with, and then we went on to the formula and then on to the biometers. And today, Hill RBF 3 is likely to be announced anytime, or maybe it has. The thing is that for me now, on my optical biometer printouts, I have the Hill RBF and I have the Barrett's most of the times, and they go hand in hand. I mean, very typically, I think in 99% or 98% of cases, they will probably be pretty close. And it's very difficult. The only good thing I find about the Hill RBF today is that, it tells you those cases which are out of bounds. Now, out of bounds cases are those eyes which are, probably the ones which are outliers. They will have not the right combination of the axial length to the keratometry to the AC depth. They may not necessarily be extremes of axial length or extremes of keratometry, but they'll be like the combination of the three things which don't kind of gel with each other. And these are the eyes where you are likely to have refractive surprises. So I really enjoy the fact that Hill RBF tells you about these out-of-bound eyes, because these are the ones where you may have a refractive surprise. And there you would want to go back and look at them more closely. And there, so I typically use Hill RBF now to predict those eyes where, if they are out of bound, they would be those eyes where I will go and look at the 2-3 different formulas and make sure that I have it right. Otherwise, I may end up with a refractive surprise. Otherwise, I think Hill RBF and Barrett's are pretty much very close to each other. And I haven't really found too many eyes which, were one or the other. But if I did have too much discrepancy between the two of them, I would probably calculate again and maybe use the SRKT and maybe use the other formulas as well, and then try to see why is that showing up as a difference. And usually you'll find the reason. Maybe Uday can comment on this as well.
Uday, I would like to
my best advice for you is, if you're putting a monofocal lens in, myopia is a gift. Choose the higher lens power. You see, I got a bit of gray hair here. I'm not wearing reading glasses because I'm a low myope. What a blessing it has been. I don't mind wearing my glasses to drive, but I want to function all day indoors being a low myope. So anytime there's a question, just choose the higher lens power for a monofocal lens. It's a no-brainer.
Agree completely.
Uday, what is your percentage of monofocals and multifocals in your practice?
We do things a little different. So I'm not a salesman for lenses. So what I do in my practice is everyone pays the exact same out-of-pocket fee. And then whatever lens I think is best for you, you pay my surgery center the actual wholesale cost of the lens. In the US, a monofocal lens will be essentially $0 or $150 if your insurance doesn't cover it. A toric is $450 US, and like something like a Panoptics will be $950 US. That's US pricing. So I don't want to have to push a multifocal lens just to get paid, because the truth is less than 10% of my patients get a multifocal lens. And I would not put a multifocal lens in my own eye because I know what I like. I want to be a low myope with a monofocal lens.
So do you do monovision if you're a myope?
Yes, sometimes I will. I'll give you some good hints here.
Yeah.
So you can do a little mono. Let's say you do plano in one eye and minus 125 in the other. Sometimes the patient will say, well, I don't know, I don't like this minus 125 eye, or it doesn't see so well. I said, don't try it for 3 months. If you don't like it, I'll do LASIK and make that eye plano also free. Then they come back in 3 months and say, I think I want that LASIK. So in that minus 125 eye, I'll put in a minus 150 contact lens. That I'll become plus a quarter then. And then I say, how's your distance? Oh, I love it. This feels better. And I said, but look at your phone. And they say, oh my God, I can't see it anymore. I said, let's not do the laser. You use the monovision. So I think a lot of people benefit from that. I'd also, for my own eyes, choose monovision, but I'd choose a mild degree. I'd probably choose like minus 75 and minus 150. Happy.
You gave a wonderful, I am the same, minus 0.75 with a 150 kind of, 125. And
it's a blessing.
I totally agree with you that micro monovision in any kind of surgery, or a monovision with a monofocal, even with a multifocal, I go with the micro monovision. Because if a patient cannot read their cell phone by evening on the surgery day, they said the surgeon is not a good surgeon. So, yeah.
Uday, what's your threshold for torics? Like, at what level would you stop using a toric? If you didn't have incisions to do, at what point would you stop using a toric? Like for lowest astigmatism?
Here in the US, the lowest toric lenses we have for Alcon, we don't have T2, we have T3.
Oh, okay.
So in the US, even for J&J or Technis, the lowest toric is 1 diopter of toric correction at the corneal plane. So in US, if it's 0.75 or 0.5, you have to do incisional.
Right.
So US doesn't have T2s or that level.
Great.
Intraoperative abrobatory with these formulas coming up, what is the role of that? I think that role has decreased now because with the accuracy we are having, so that really doesn't come into, has lost some of its relevance. Am I right, Uday, for that matter?
We have everything in our surgery center. So all of our 8 operating rooms have intraoperative aberrometry. I use it 1% or less of the time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not very useful. And remind you, like I said, I promised the outcome, I delivered. If I promised you plano and you're not there, I will do your LASIK for free and you will be happy.
I think that's raising the bar. that's what it is. Yes.
Now, on a note, on a corollary to that, tell me, that must be less than 1% of your population who needs the LASIK, actually, looking at the way your surgical precision is. What is the percentage which gets in for excimer laser after that?
It's probably a little bit more. It's probably a couple percent. It's certainly less than 5%. Okay. But remember, like I said earlier, I'll always choose that slightly higher lens power if there's any question. And a little bit myopia, being -0.5 instead of plano, you got to enjoy that. That's not a big deal. So I just don't want to land on the hyperopic side.
So do you prefer PRK or you prefer a flap-based procedure to correct the refractive error?
Great question, Arti. So it depends on the patient. A lot of times the older patients have a small pupil and the young people cry with PRK. It hurts so much. The old people don't even blink. That feels nothing. You give them a topical NSAID, they have no pain at all. So I think you can do a very small zone PRK for small refractive error, but if it's some significant refractive error with some still in it, you're better off making the flap. Just, eat the cost, give them the better outcome. The other advantage of the flap is instant recovery. The next morning, I know you'll be 20/20 or 6/6, whereas PRK will take a little bit longer. And then the final pearl there was the PRK. When you take off the epithelium, only take off as much as you need, but I actually take it off in a pattern, a circle that's not exactly centered on the pupil. So if I need to do a 6 millimeter ablation, maybe I'll take off 7 or 7.5 millimeters, but I don't want the epithelium to close all the way from the sides, and then the last part to close is the exact center of the pupil. That's the worst. So if you make that eccentric, it closes, and at least the last ugly spot to close in the center is actually just outside the pupil.